Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'd like to call to order the Aspen City Council's regular meeting for March 11th, 2025. But with that call to order, just wanted to do a land acknowledgement. I wanted to recognize and honor those that have come before us on these lands, most specifically the Ute Nation, Native American tribe, and others that were here before us. And with that, a call to order. Could we have a roll call, please, for attendance?
Councillor Doyle.
Here.
Councillor Guth.
Yes.
Councillor Howenstein.
Here.
Councillor Rose.
Here.
Mayor Tory.
Here. With no scheduled public appearances, that'll bring us to citizens' comments and petitions. Are there any members of the public that wish to address council this evening? We do ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity to speak.
And Mr. Mayor, just a heads up that Zoom has crashed. Javier is in the process of restarting it, but I think you may continue at your discretion.
Right, we are still recording and still, okay. Then we'll continue on while that comes back up. I saw Neil's hand up over there. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One more time, right?
One more time.
Neil Siegel, Aspen. The municipal code has a provision limiting individual contributions to a political committee to $250. There is, however, no limit on contributions for an issues committee. It's unlimited. The introduction to that code provision states as follows. The City Council hereby finds and declares that large campaign contributions to political candidates allows wealthy contributors and special interest groups to exercise a disproportionate level of influence over the political process, that large campaign contributions create the potential for corruption and the appearance of corruption, and that the interests of the public are best served by limiting campaign contributions. I submit that the same logic applies to an issues committee. Consider the money raised for referendum 2. By the way, Ward, congratulations on the win this round. But there is no doubt that having collected over $220,000 with one large donation of $100,000, their DC-based consultants overwhelmed the election. This is an election that was won by big money. It was won by big money. The city can end this largesse by amending the municipal code. I gave Catherine the site, and limit that amount to a contribution to an issues committee, which is currently unlimited, to be the same as that for a political committee, $250. That's the request from this side. It's reasonable. $250 across the board, and it's fair. And as a home rule jurisdiction, the state gives you specifically the right to limit those campaign contributions, whether they be to a political committee or to an issues committee. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Thank you for that. We'll come back to that after public comment. Other members of the public for public comment this evening?
I'm Francis Stuckins. I've been living in town a while. I write some science fiction, and I'm really proud to be able to be a member of this community for so many years. You know, there's a bunch of stuff staring us in the face. We had an election, and there's still like this ton of traffic with single drivers coming into town. It's still happening.
No way.
Yeah, and I didn't address the members of the council. Thank you. Congratulations are in order for a couple things, and thanks for doing what you do. I don't want to sound like a cheerleader. I'm just
recording in progress.
Now we're in trouble. That was all improv. I crossed the street at Aspen Country Inn. We've had, you know, at night when I head back from the vortex of Carl's wine cellar. And we get to see everybody, and there's all kinds of talk, I don't know if I'm channeling it or not, about getting in and out of town. It's right in a parking lot. There's air pollution, all kinds of stuff. I love riding the bus, you know, and it's a great form of transportation, but how do we cut down the cars? So I'm just putting that out there. I have nothing but a science fiction solution. Like I say, I'm on the radio. I have a bunch of stuff with rock and roll going on. This isn't about me, but it's about being able to get ideas out there. And I'd also love to see moving forward with the some kind of community center at the Armory. So thank you so much for everything you do. Congratulations to the winners, and to the losers, we keep on going. Not that I'm a loser. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Francis. Appreciate you.
Perfect sense to me.
Other members of the public for public comment this evening? And one last call. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council table. And this is an opportunity for council members' comments. Anybody care to start this evening?
Sure.
John?
Yeah, as everybody probably knows, we had a municipal election last Tuesday, and I'd like to speak about the voter turnout. There's only 48% turnout, and that's really disappointing to me. I'm hoping there can be better turnout for the upcoming runoff election on April 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, John. On this end, Sam?
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge staff in the information update packet. We got prescribed burn coming up on Sunnyside. They talked also about the path towards the new EIS if the new council decides to do so, and then also the Aspen sustainability plan. And with that, just in this plan, it talks about the financial impacts, and I just wanted to throw out there, like I said last night, if staff has requests for additional funding for additional initiatives that would be good for this community, I really ask them to come forward with those requests. You can talk to any one of us first, but you know, we do have a large budget, and these things don't necessarily have the time to wait, and tangible results are very important to me and the rest of the community. So if there's something that you want to request that you think would benefit this community, especially climate action, please bring them forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
No specific comments, but I did think that Neil's idea was interesting and warrants discussion. I know you mentioned we're going to come back to that, so I don't know if you want to do that now or another time, but.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, let's start the conversation. Kate, the inference was made that as a home rule charter, we can amend, and is that charter language that does the provisions for campaign financing?
No, I believe it's a section of your, sorry. It's actually located in city code, is my
Okay.
understanding, not in the charter, so it wouldn't require a vote. You could do it by ordinance. However, what I need to do more research on, and what my only concern is here, is there was a case out of the federal courts, out of the Supreme Court, called Citizens United. And it dealt with, in that case, a corporation's ability to spend money, and if capping that would be essentially a restriction on their First Amendment rights. So corporations, like people, have the right to speak out publicly, spend money publicly to make, just like issue committees do, to take a position on a political issue. This, I just need to do some research to make sure that an amendment such that Mr. Siegel discussed wouldn't run afoul of that case. And I need a little bit more time to look into that. Certainly, I think you can discuss it. I just don't have that answer for you tonight.
Okay, great. Is there a desire from members of this council to get more information regarding issue committee campaign donation limits?
I'd like to know more.
You?
Me too.
Me too.
Okay.
Yep. Kate, we'd love some information on that.
And I did have one more thing. I just thought of things. We had an info-only memo from Nicole on reverting to November elections. And I'd like to, I don't know if we need to schedule a meeting specifically to talk about it, or if people have formed opinions on whether they think reverting to November is a good idea, but I'm in the camp of reverting to November.
I think John's comments about better voter turnout would be served well by having the election in November. That, I think, would require a vote and to change the home rule charter. I think we've done that 3 times, back and forth, but I support a November election date. The argument has been in the past that local issues and candidates would get lost in the general elections. I think that Aspen voters have bandwidth and ability to discern. I trust that a better turnout would be achieved in November.
Just one comment on that, because I was of the camp that was concerned about it getting lost in the federal elections, and it would go to a vote to the voters, so they get to decide what time they want the election. We'd have to put it to them unless they petition. One consideration that I have thought about is wondering if we did municipal elections and odd year elections, like in this type of November, so that it didn't get lost in the shuffle, but I do believe turnout is relatively high, even in odd year November elections, something that I would just like to know more about, to consider between that and federal elections.
Sounds good.
Have we ever tried that, Nicole? Odd year Novembers? To the best of your knowledge, no?
I think that the coordinating with the federal elections, it would better serve a better turnout. Having a municipal election on odd years gets us in the same position we are now, I think. But I'm certainly open to having that discussion, and we've got 2 years or a year to have another election.
Well, one of my questions would be, if we did shift it to odd years, would it then be run by the county if it was in November, or would the city still be running it? Because that seems counterproductive.
Yeah, I mean, I would still be running it,
Oh.
basically.
I think, my understanding is the county does, on some occasions, do odd election, like if a issue comes up, there are elections every year in November at the county level. It doesn't necessarily meet with the federal election cycles, right?
Yeah.
But there are still county elections in November that I think we could utilize the county's offices for, if we were to join those and do those collectively.
Right.
For instance, the school board election is in this November. There might be others, but at least, I'm just saying it personally, like, I just don't want things to get lost in the shuffle. I totally understand the argument of federal election cycle, but I had been told that odd year November elections actually do have reasonably high turnout. But once again, I'm just one of 5, and it's just more information up for discussion, just to throw out there.
Yeah, I don't know what next steps are here. We did get a white paper on it. We have some information. It sounds like there's still some outstanding questions. But this conversation needs to continue to happen, because the one thing that I have heard is that the current early March election does not work for many segments of our population. So I think we want to continue this conversation and find out some more information. I do support moving to November. I'd be interested in that odd year election, because if the county would still be running it, that's a benefit to us. If they're not, then it's less of a benefit to us. But even, I'll tell you what, even moving it to April, you know, it used to be May, but even moving it back to April or something would be better than March. March is difficult for everybody. But I think a big goal here would be to alleviate our municipality from running our own municipal elections. So more information would be great.
Would you like a work session on the 24th on this? On March 24th, or does that feel too soon?
You know, for me, this is not the most burning issue that we have, but it needs to be done in timeliness so that we don't find ourselves in 2 years going, well, we would have to vote. That would be a charter change, I believe, right? So we would have to vote on it in our next scheduled municipal No.
No, we
could
vote put it on the November ballot,
Right.
this coming November.
Odd year.
So we just need to tee this up for September, being ready to do something on a ballot this November.
Could I suggest we get a amendment or an addition to the info update to address Sam's point or suggestion? And then we could bring this up during council comments again. I don't think that we need a whole dedicated work session subject on it necessarily.
Are there any other questions that folks have at this time that you can think of to add to that?
Well, my question, I guess, is to Nicole and Kate, that if we do have an election for home rule charter, that would be November of '26? Because there's no election for November '25, is there?
There may be.
We can submit ballots to be put on, or we can submit questions for the county ballot. Those generally have to be submitted. We generally notify the county in July that we have questions, and we have to submit that ballot language early September, end of August, depending on the year. So it could be on this coming year's November ballot.
Okay, Bill, so just clarification, you're asking for documentation or voter turnout on a odd year November? Is that what we're looking for to answer?
No, we
Sam's?
were wondering if the county runs an odd year election on every odd year. And if the county did not have any questions or a district did not have any questions coming forward, would we be able to pay the county in order to run the election in an odd year November? Or would the county look back at us and say, we don't have an election this year, so you have to do it? That's the crux of that question. You are asking for some historical data on odd year November turnout. We could ask for that as well.
Yes, please.
And the suggestion is to just get this in an info memo addendum before we move towards having a work session on this.
And so for two of us at this table that are up for election on April 1st, do we want to have a work session between now and the election, or do you want to put that off until after April 1st?
I just don't want to
Prepare, yeah,
put a burden or a load on staff for a turnaround in 2 weeks.
yeah, with the current election
With an
going on.
election.
So the clerk's office is currently organizing and facilitating our runoff election.
Yeah.
So I would ask Nicole if she has
So
the
you have
ability
plenty
to
of
do
time.
that.
Right, all the time.
Yeah, it's just a runoff.
Correct.
All right, so no, the answer is no. We're not going to request it back before the April 1st election. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Did I get over here? Ward, did you have any additional comments this evening?
Well, my comments, I kind of relate to Neil's questions. I would support campaign finance reform to the point where everybody gets the same amount of money and no individuals can support it. But I think, like the Friends of Merle spent a ton of money before, trying to influence before the election cycle. And I think that I don't agree that money always buys the outcome of an election. I think Base 2 is an example how it was outspent, yet prevailed by over 60%. I just have faith in Aspen voters, but I'm open to putting a cap on the amount of money contributed for issues committees as well.
Here, here. John?
Yeah, I would add to that thanks to local media, we learned that the history of the Lift 1 Lodge redevelopment corridor, $283,000 was spent on that election, which won by 26 votes against 15,000 in opposition. So I would say money bought that election.
You never know.
No other council members' comments. I'll fill everybody in with board reports.
I'd put money on it. All right, yes, I have a couple of items. Sam mentioned the Sunnyside prescribed burn that is coming up. Just so the public is aware, there is a controlled burn that is scheduled for the springtime. It is not set for a date yet. They are weather dependent. It could last one day. More likely, they might have 2 or 3 days over a 2-week period to complete that work. But once again, there will be a prescribed burn. Most of the time, we're really just worried about people overreacting and thinking that it's a wildfire that is out there. Just so everybody knows now, in the spring, you will see some smoke coming up from that area, much like we saw in 2022 with the Hunter Creek prescribed burn. I wanted to make an announcement so everybody knows that this is Comedy Week at the Wheeler Opera House. Some amazing talent and some funny shows are coming your way. So get your tickets while they are still available for Comedy Week this week at the Wheeler. But I also wanted to let people know that on the 17th, Monday the 17th, the band Altan is playing at the Wheeler Opera House. This is an amazing band. The best way that I can describe it is mountain-friendly music. But they are fantastic. Tickets are still available, but it's a possible sellout on a Monday night. I wanted to ask this council for another request for information. We have seen other communities in Colorado moving towards reducing or eliminating some of the single-use plastics and styrofoam in their communities with some success. And I was hoping that this council would support getting an info memo from our environmental health team in regards to what those other communities are doing, what maybe Aspen could be looking at doing as well to reduce plastics and styrofoam in our community. I will put one caveat on it that I'm not asking for a full-time employee. What I would love is for information to come forward that is possible legislatively, for an initiative legislatively, and not necessarily for a full-time employee that needs to oversee a new program. And I'm looking for council support to get, not a work session, but info first.
You have my support.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think staff could look at what perhaps Telluride and other communities have done and the cooperation that they've received from the large grocery vendors, Kroger, I think. It seems as though the time is right, and we have willing participants and partners out there for this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take the information.
Thank you.
I'm not supportive of it, but only because I would ask you in retort where you see styrofoam being used in Aspen. I haven't seen styrofoam here for years. Single-use plastic, very little. Grocery stores don't use it. They can't use it. We already have that rule. So to me, it just seems like a unnecessary initiative. Almost all restaurants that I'm aware of use, for the most part, recyclable or compostable to-go stuff. I think it's very limited. I'm just not sure that it's necessary to use staff time on this.
Well, I see it all over the place. It's true that there are a lot of restaurants that have taken it upon themselves, but not all of them. There is still styrofoam being used in our community. The biggest example of that is at City Market. They serve a lot of things out of their deli counter with styrofoam. And as Ward was talking about other communities that have had some luck, really talking to Kroger about their desire to be reducing some of those products and packaging as well. But this is just the start of a conversation. There's a greater desire to see smart packaging and a reduction in plastics in packaging and across the board. So these are still out there, and I think just having this conversation can get us a step closer to maybe doing something here in Aspen, maybe not, but we'll find out some information from other communities and what they've been successful with. Just to throw out there, Vail Resorts, as a matter of fact, over in Vail, has reduced or eliminated their plastic bottles, plastic water bottles and plastic soda bottles on mountain. And that was something that their ski company as well as their township pushed for together, and they've had some great success with it. So it's just the tip of an iceberg, but it's just the start of a conversation. I appreciate the support for that. I'm looking at CJ as I say that. Is that okay with you, and you understand what we're looking for? Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, what I'm hearing is single-use plastics relative to restaurants, grocery stores, and single-use styrofoam. That's the initial focus?
Yes, please.
Great, thanks.
Anything missing in there?
Just some additional comments. I've noticed that all the takeout down at Clark's Market is being served in single-use plastic containers. They're not styrofoam, but they are single-use plastic containers. Also, on a ski trip up to Canada last year, I noticed all of their on-mountain restaurants have these flatware dispensers that are compostable. It's from a company called Earthwise. Just thought I'd throw that out there. I'd like to see more of that in town rather than plastic flatware.
Thanks. Ward?
You know, you go to City Market and pretty much all the salads anymore are in these plastic bags. And a few years ago, when we talked about this a couple of years ago, I was doing research on if they're compostable, biodegradable bags that could be used. So I'd like to include that as a research topic as well. If they're bags that all your produce that comes in these plastic bags, if there's a viable alternative to that, and if Kroger is open to that. Like Dole, I mean, if we get a large manufacturer or producer of produce, could be the start of, could be a tipping point to start to get positive environmental results at a lot larger geographic area than just Telluride or Aspen or Vail.
Yeah, partnering with the grocery stores.
And just to confirm, would you like staff to have a couple, not a full-on community engagement, but a few conversations with some of these businesses before that info-only memo, or you just wanted to come back with an initial, what can you do legislatively?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with what can we do legislatively and learning from other communities that have already instituted it. I think there'd probably be no harm, and it might actually be a fun part of this engagement to actually reach out to Kroger at City Market and Clark's. I would definitely speak with both of them. But as far as engaging individual restaurants, I don't, we have so many that I don't want to really burden or task with that. But if there was some resources that environmental health have already made inroads with, then they feel free. I wouldn't say don't talk to them, but I wouldn't also say make sure you poll every restaurant.
Great.
I think that the huge gains would be from Kroger.
And maybe APCHA, depending on how environmental health feels about it, but maybe there's a role for APCHA in this, in polling their membership.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I want to take an opportunity here. You know, I'm going to be serving in this chair only for a few more weeks, so I want to make continue the work that I've done on some of these issues. And I want to bring up just one more time the Armory and the direction of the Armory, third floor. Last week, I want to thank Jen Phelan for meeting with me for a few minutes just to go over what the council has recently approved. And, you know, I don't know if the council is aware of it or not, but the current layout and floor plan for the third floor, the top floor of the new Armory after redevelopment, has a bar in the middle of the floor. And, you know, one thing we've heard throughout the outreach that we've done with our community is that they're looking for a de-emphasis on bars and drinking in this community space. And we're looking for a little bit more activation for the community. And as Jen and I met last week, that was one of the things that stood out to me as a potential flaw in this design, is that by placing a bar in the center of the space, it not only limits the uses of the space perhaps, but it puts that emphasis on alcohol sales. and what that means. You know, we've already had these conversations. Right now, there are no real measures to be put in place that guarantee affordability. So the top floor of that could end up being, you know, somewhat of a bar and restaurant scene that is really needing to cater to that consumption. And, you know, what I've heard from the community is that we're not looking to reinforce that. There's already 3 food service vendors on the main level of the newly programmed armory, as well as a bar on that floor. So I just have concern about putting a bar in the middle of the top floor of the armory and how that works against a little bit of our goals. I bring that up now, not because we're working on that tonight or not that I'm looking for direction from council, but I would like each of you to think about it. As I'm leaving this term, I definitely want to see this moving in the right direction. And currently, they will start designs based on that. And what that means is they will do plumbing and electricity for that centrally located bar on the top floor. And at that point, it becomes somewhat of a point of no return. So I just want to put this in council members' heads about what we have approved and make sure that we are going to get what we really want out of that armory redevelopment.
Tori?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to know exactly where we are in no-go on committing to internal programming. I know that we're at the process of getting land use approvals and I think conceptual, but when we start getting to a point of go, no-go and plumbing, that's when we have to make, our future council has to make decisions that will affect the use of the armory.
So right now, it's in design. It won't be in construction for quite a bit, but it is in design. So the design that moves forward will be what they are attempting to go to build with. So the time for this is over the next few months to make a change like this. But this was the approval by council at a meeting maybe a month ago was to support the design effort and the contract that came forward. So in order to evaluate this, we will need to make changes in the next couple months. From Jen, because a new council will be being seated on April 8th, Jen is just now trying to figure out how the best way for her to come back to council to get their buy-in, to get their take on it, and to get the plans finalized by the newly seated council.
Yeah, and I think that should be a real concerted effort to bring the new, if there are new council members, up to speed on where we are now. And so if that's Jen or who that is, but to bring them up to speed as quickly and as thoroughly as possible.
Okay.
I appreciate that comment.
And Diane, just for context, I'm sharing what Jen shared with me, and council members are supportive of that engagement with the new council. Thank you. With that, it brings me to the election. Just another moment, if you'll indulge me. Congratulations to Rachel Richards, who is going to be our next mayor of the city of Aspen. And many thanks and congratulations also to Katie Frisch. Throwing your hat in the ring in this community is a big deal. And so we really should thank anybody who steps forward and is willing to go through the process of a campaign, much less want the office to serve. I also wanted to say congratulations to Scott Woolley and Tyler Wilkinson-Ray on their participation. They did garner quite a number of votes each, and that just shows that community support for them as individuals, but also what they were trying to bring to the table and how they spoke to the issues. I have no doubt that we will see them again in public service. Scott, as a matter of fact, was a newly appointed APCHA representative on the board, so he will be serving on APCHA. And Tyler has already said that he is not going anywhere. He actually was chairing the Next Gen group in its last months. And so his commitment to this community is real, and he will be there. But to both of them, I say thank you and congratulations. When it comes to the referendum passed by a narrow margin. I think this really is the best opportunity for us moving forward. I do, at this time, support the community's desire for a two-bridge solution. However, I've made it known that I am not a fan of the preferred alternative, and I think that the modified split shot really addresses community concerns while lending itself to community goals actually better than the preferred alternative. This council did ask that Jacobs Engineering start working on some of the modified split shot parameters and what that might look like. I'm really hoping that we may get that back soon, and so it can inform the discussion as it moves forward. I do agree with Mr. Siegel about the impact of funds in this past election. Over $200,000 supporting this was a little egregious to me, and it does hearken me back to other votes that are swayed by undue influence by money and wealth on issues. Thank you. Those are my comments for this evening. No agenda amendments this evening that I see. Thank you. City manager's comments tonight?
Just one, Mr. Mayor, and to your one of your most recent points. Jen Newton, Senior Project Manager, and I had a discussion with City Attorney Kate Johnson, and what do we call Jim now? Jim?
Special counsel.
Special counsel, about the Jacobs Engineering drawings, and we had, staff had been working on those with Jacobs. We had not published those because the election was still going on, and we determined this afternoon, quite literally within the past hour, that that can be published, and so Jen will get that published on the website, along with all of the bullet points as far as the assumptions that go into that drawing, and that will be published by the end of the week on the website, and we will shoot an email to council as well as to the candidates when that is published. Thank you.
That'd be great. I do think that should probably come to council for review before it's released. I think there might be some questions or unanswered questions that are possible, so I think that council should have a look at it before it's released to the public.
Mayor, if I could, the alternative, I think, that may meet with your approval would be to put it on for an information-only memo, or as an agenda item at the next regular meeting, if that's what if you're seeking to have more of a public discussion about it.
I'm just saying that it is a product that the council requested, and so making sure that it is complete and it is representative of what was requested, I think should at least be run by us.
Right, so so we can't just send it to council and not, because that would violate the open meetings law, so we can either, one is we could publish it on the website this week. Second option is we could, while we don't normally publish info-only memos, we could do that with next week's work session packet, or we could put it in the as an info-only memo on the 25th, or we could add it as a work session or item on any of those dates. There, you have all kinds of wonderful options.
Okay, well, if it can't be reviewed to make sure that it is ready for public consumption, then release it ASAP. Cool, thank you for that. Any other city manager comments this evening?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Board reports tonight?
All I've got is cast, but you were there.
I was there. I'll start it and then you can fill it in.
Sounds good.
Great. Last week, John and I went down to Denver for CAST, Colorado Association of Ski Towns meeting. This is boy, I don't even know what the membership is these days, but maybe 90 communities from not just Colorado, but Utah, Canada, and Wyoming. So the Colorado Association of Ski Towns is a very predominant player in this space of legislating or lobbying for the good of mountain communities. And last week was Colorado Association of Ski Towns' annual legislative update with CML. And that really just informs, our state legislature is in the middle of their session right now. So it's an opportunity for us to find out what's going on, what's still to come, and the status of some of the bills that have been introduced. John and I made the extra effort to go down to meet with our the House Speaker, Julie McCluskey. That was on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. We were over at the Capitol. And it was really great to meet with her. She does a lot of really great work for us. She's been our district representative before, and as a Speaker of the House, she still represents us, and she works with us very well and very closely. It was great to just meet with her and talk to her about some of the issues that we have with some of the bills. Those specifically were vacancy taxes and excise taxes in relationship to STRs and vacant homes and the like. You know, what we expressed to her is that we are not asking for, on Aspen's behalf, for things like a vacancy tax at this time. But we do recognize that there are other communities that may greatly benefit from such a measure. What I shared with Julie was that, you know, we've got STR taxes in place. We have a real estate transfer tax in place. So our desire maybe to move towards a vacancy tax right now is probably not there or not necessary for our community, but we do support others that don't have some of those tools. If you don't know, things like real estate transfer taxes are no longer implementable unless they are already existing. So there are communities out there that don't have the same benefit that we have as we work towards our housing goals. And we would like to give them some of those tools. But we did say that, hey, these may not even be something that Aspen is looking at, but we support our brethren in the mountains. Other than that, we talked about something that's called a YIGBY bill. This is something that allows for faith and educational lands, so churches and schools, to have unfettered development rights. There are a couple of problems and loopholes with this that we see in it. So our current position at CAST is to oppose this unless amendments, and the amendments that we were asking for were not included. Other things are things like the building codes for factory-built structures, modular building, something that the city of Aspen has a lot of experience in and trying to help the rest of our state get closer to getting some of the efficiencies that modular building can bring to us. Other things, risk model using and property insurance policies, expanding lodging taxes into counties, and the like. A litany, there is a list hundreds long for the legislature that is coming through in this session. And we'll be giving council members a greater update in our meeting later this month. But that's just for public to let you know that we did attend that. The other thing was the governor stopped into the CAST meeting that was at the CML building. And just to have one-on-one FaceTime with the governor is a really great asset to our community, as he has a lot of respect for Aspen and really listens to what we say. But it's always good to be there. And once again, thank him and shake his hand and say hello and welcome him. Do you want to fill in any other details?
Yeah, I guess I'll just tell what I experienced. So going to Colorado Association of Ski Towns meetings, and as well as Colorado Municipal League meetings, I find really important and really enlightening meeting with other electeds, especially the ones from ski towns. We talk about a lot of common issues we have, and it's good to meet with these people face to face. I get a lot of pleasure out of traveling to Denver for conferences, believe it or not, traveling to other ski towns for these conferences, because I get to experience what these ski towns are like. I got to meet Julie McCluskey in her office in the Capitol building. That was really meaningful to me, and I just don't even really know how to describe the feeling, but being in this position, I find that really important and meaningful to be able to, as Tori said, we were able to ask the governor questions one-on-one This is the power that we have as local elected officials. And I hope that the other candidates that are still in the runoff election will approach this position with the same enthusiasm and be willing to serve on boards and commissions. Yeah. Really meaningful stuff. YIGB, actually, the bill Tori was talking about, stands for Yes in God's Backyard, and one of the reasons that mountain towns opposed it, as Ian Billick, the mayor of Crested Butte, said, they were talking about the maximum heights of buildings. This is for housing on church-owned properties. And it was dreamed up down in Denver, and so one of the things that we didn't like, especially Crested Butte, was the height limits were 45 feet. The mayor of Crested Butte said, if we allow that, it'll be higher than anything in our whole town. So clearly this isn't going to work for us, plus the ease with which you can get religious accreditation and then possibly develop some housing and then maybe find a different God. These are issues that I think we all expressed our concern about, and that's why YIGB does not have cast support. Sorry for the long-winded discussion, but again, these are super important boards and commissions that we serve on. I think Aspen deserves to be represented statewide and among ski towns and on boards such as RWAPA and the Board of Health. And I take this job seriously, and I hope I have your vote on April 1st. Thanks.
Thanks. That'll bring us down to the consent calendar on our agenda this evening. Our consent calendar tonight is resolution number 31, spring supplemental resolution for APCHA funds. Resolution number 35, fleet replacement loader mounted snowblower. Resolution number 36, approval of 1 year as needed cleaning services contract for APCHA. Resolution number 37, concrete replacement, ADA ramp improvements and inlet repair projects. Resolution number 38, special events policy amendment. Are there any items that council members wish to pull for further discussion?
38, please.
38. Any others?
Same one.
Okay. Resolution number 38, special events policy amendment. Thanks, Phyllis.
Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Hi, Austin.
Want me to start?
Go right ahead.
Thanks. Nancy, my concern here is on special events open to the public. I think that's my only concern in here that caught my eye. And my concern comes from, if you do, I think I understand that there's a park rental and then there's a special event, which is in the next tier. But let's say you're doing some small wedding or something that falls into the special event tier for one of many criteria. That shouldn't be open to the public. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Correct. So that isn't a wedding is actually a park rental. We have pretty strict guidelines on what a wedding can be and how it can be enacted. And a wedding, the way we have allowed it in a park, would not trigger a special event application. And so the only thing we're really amending here is the special event application, and we're actually just adding a matrix to help clarify to our applicants, really our expectations up front. We think we are being very clear, but I think we need to be clearer. And so to help us really just kind of put it everywhere we can, we are adding this into the compliance. So it really has everything to do with those events that trigger special event applications.
Thanks for clarifying that. So just to make sure that I'm not getting this wrong, other than the obvious recent special event, Palm Tree, can you give me some examples of other recent special events?
Sure. Food and Wine, Ruggerfest, 4th of July,
Motherload?
Motherload.
Polo.
Pardon?
Polo.
Yep,
Ducky Derby?
yep.
And on and on.
Come on.
I know.
Okay.
Hold on.
So in your mind, there's no way we're gonna get this wrong by
Oh.
forcing someone to open something that the public doesn't.
I hope we are not going to get it wrong. We are certainly, our intention is not to do any aha, gotcha moments. So if we see that actually, you know, of all the scenarios we have talked through and walked through and everything we have looked at, you know, if we applied this to every single special event, if something comes up that is completely an unintended consequence, we'll be back in front of you making that change.
Great.
And we're not going to penalize somebody for our mistake.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions?
And one of my questions was, perhaps this is something that should be handled administratively without the council having to get involved in. Specifically to this, what's the delta? What's different from, that's presented to us from what is already in place?
So we're just adding the matrix to the code. So because it's a code, and I don't know if Kate can maybe clarify this a little better than I can, but because it's a code, it comes to you to get approved.
So,
Why do we,
yeah.
can't this be handled administratively?
Not to enforce it. So I think what Nancy's point is that we first, I think, brought regulations to you 2 years ago. And with the idea that if things weren't working maybe as planned, we would come back to you. So I think what Nancy is seeking here is more ability to enforce these regulations for certain maybe special event coordinators that don't follow the rules, to then require, you know, make it harder for them to sort of comply with our special event permitting in the future, or hold them to a higher standard than previously because of the issue we maybe had in past years. To hold them to that standard, that needs to be codified. I think you have the power to do that in how you regulate your special event permitting, because it is a permit that they apply for and have a right to get if they meet the requirements of the code.
And it will be handled administratively, day to day. You just, as I believe I understand, you just have to approve the concept. You just have to approve the fact that we are adding this matrix for clarification, for everybody's, so everybody knows up front exactly what we're doing, exactly how we're gonna be looking at it, exactly what we're asking for, when we're asking for it, and those sorts of things.
The thing that jumped out to me was, and I understand for an event like Palm Tree, it's got to be 6 months in advance, but for other events, it had to be 90 days in advance. And there are a lot of issues that come up on short notice that I think Pepke Park was used for a special event that couldn't have been foreseen 90 days ago. So how are events like that handled if to get a permit, you have to have a 90-day lead time?
So within our special event application, it's really kind of, we would follow those rules. So whether it's a major, minor, moderate, or even sometimes we call them administrative, and those would be less than. So we would follow those dates.
So did the event that was held at Pepke Park, was that permitted?
So that is a free speech. And while we give them a permit, it doesn't go through it does not go through the application process.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions?
I'll make a motion to approve consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Do we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Guth,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Rose.
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you. We have a notice of call-up this evening. This is for a notice of Aspen Historic Preservation Commission Resolution Number 1, Series of 2025, 337 Lake Ave.
sorry.
Take a minute.
One moment, sorry. Apologies, I didn't realize I had to join the Zoom meeting, so one moment.
All right.
All right, I'm in.
Yep.
Just gotta share my screen and we'll be good to go.
Thanks, honey. It just takes a minute.
Maybe. Okay, well, it's not letting, I can do it like this, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jillian White, Aspen's Historic Preservation Officer, and this evening I'm bringing before you a notice of call-up for the Historic Preservation Commission Resolution Number 1 of Series 2025, which grants a certificate of appropriateness for major development conceptual review for property located at 337 Lake Avenue. Here in this screen, I really apologize because it's showing all kinds of markups. But this on the left, you'll see here is a map to give you some context as to where this project is taking place. And this is the little marker right here. In the middle, you'll see an image that outlines the subject property shown on the 1896 Willits map. And then to the right, you'll see a 2024 aerial showing the subject property, 337 Lake, and then right below that, 335 Lake. And then in this bottom image, you have the existing street view of the vacant lot that is the subject property for this proposal. The proposal for new development is subject to notice of call-up because the vacant lot was created through the DAG's historic landmark lot split, and that was between 335, and which was Lot A, and 337, which is Lot B of that historic lot split. 335 contains a circa 1889 Aspen Victorian miners cottage, and 337 is currently vacant. Here, you will see the resolution that is before you today. It approves a conceptual development plan for 337 Lake Avenue, which proposes to construct a modest one-story single-family dwelling of approximately 1,100 square feet on the existing 6,000 square foot vacant lot. Here you can see the associated elevations and renderings of both the existing historic resource from Lot A, 335 Lake Avenue, and also the proposed new development on Lot B, 337 Lake, with a rendering showing what is proposed. Here we have just an aerial site plan so that you can see it in relation to the existing historic resource, which is on the bottom of the screen, and then above is the proposed single-family residence. HPC had approved this resolution for conceptual development of this new development on the vacant lot, and staff supports this.
Jillian, I'm going to interrupt you for one moment.
I apologize. It's come to my attention, I think. Thank you. It's come to my attention by Councilmember Doyle that I believe he has a conflict of interest with respect to this particular location.
It is, I was confused because the address of my wife's house is on 3rd Street, and this is basically very close to being next door, but it's on Lake, hence the confusion. I will be leaving the room.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Pursuant to our rules, he is required to recuse himself and step out of the room while this item is discussed. Thank you.
Forget what you heard, John.
Perfect timing for the presentation to work correctly. I'll just fast forward back through. You guys missed all my great animation transitions. But maybe you can at least see it a little bit more clearly here. Again, the historic resource that is existing on the left, the proposed new development on your right. Again, the site plan that's proposed. And HPC had approved this conceptual development plan through via this resolution number 1 of series 2025. Staff was in support of this request as we found that the request meets the historic preservation design guidelines and is a fairly modest approach to development on this parcel, which we are in support of. I am here to answer any additional questions related to this and leave it at that.
Thank you. Any questions here? Ward?
Yeah, this can confuse me a little bit because normally we see one lot, you know, and
Right.
now we have two. So my question is, how is 335 affected? I think by zoning, a duplex and a single family are allowed. Is this considered 335 and 337 as one developable lot now, or it was lot split, so there are two?
It was lot split, so there's two parcels, but the historic designation boundary includes both parcels. And so any development on the vacant lot would still be subject to HPC review.
And this has no effect on future development of 335?
No.
Okay. And this leaves FAR availability for 337 after this is constructed?
They're allowed, I think, 1,700 square feet, and they're at about 1,100 square feet. So they do have an excess of square footage, but not very much. They're held to the 1,700 square feet because of that historic lot split ordinance. So they do have some extra square footage if they were to come back and.
If they were to come back or to sever TDR?
They wouldn't be able to sever TDR because they're not historic. Well, I guess they could, yeah. I haven't seen that yet, but yes, it's possible.
Okay. Yeah, when I look at this, I think this is really modest for the lot and for the neighborhood. I was just curious as to how it affected 335 and could 335 also have severed TDRs?
They didn't have any TDRs created out of the ordinance, but they did get a 500 square foot bonus granted to them through that process. So they did get an extra 500 square feet for 335. But the only way that this review impacts that property is that we're taking into consideration the historic resource as we review the guidelines for this development.
And both are owned by the same party?
Correct.
So in the future, we could see a request for severing 2 TDRs on 335 and up to 3 perhaps on, two full ones on 337.
I'll have to look back at the ordinance. I think it does specify the maximum allowed developable area, and so I'm not sure of the exact amount of TDRs that could be created from this, but I can find that out and get back to you.
Yeah, at this point with this proposal, I see no reason to call it out.
Thanks, Ward. Questions or comments here? Nope. Yeah, my only question about it was whether in the lot split, if there were any covenants or restrictions on this. Oftentimes when people do this lot split, they'll put that into conservation or not want development there. I understand the situation here, but there were no covenants about limiting or reducing development?
There were about limiting the development. That's on 337. They're only allowed to up to 1,700 square feet of developable area. There was also some other language regarding what would be allowed, and I could pull that up potentially, or I could send you the approved resolution ordinance that approved that, but I think it was either 1 duplex or 2 single-family residential, not to exceed that amount of development, but I can clarify.
Okay. Not necessary for me. You know, if what we are being given for renderings and such actually comes to fruition, then this looks like as Ward said, a modest and appropriate development style in this area. So I do not have a desire for call-up at this time either.
All right,
No action.
thank you.
Thank you.
Apologize again for technical difficulties.
You're quite all right.
Don't we love technology?
Thanks. Yep, thank you, Diane. That brings us on our agenda to first reading of ordinances. Tonight we have ordinance number 3. This is the spring supplemental. Nothing says spring like spring supplemental.
There's a supplemental in the air.
Almost see most of the grass out in Rio Grande Park as well. But we got more snow coming. Hello, Mayor and Council. Matt Grau, Budget Manager for the City of Aspen. We are here tonight for first reading of our 2025 Spring Supplemental Ordinance 3, Series 2025. The Spring Supplemental accomplishes 3 main goals. Number 1, we true up our revised beginning fund balance to match pre-audit financials. 2, we formally request carry forward and additional appropriations for the current fiscal year that were not part of our original adopted budget. And 3, we project any additional revenues for the current fiscal year. Our original 2025 opening balance, as presented in budget adoption in the fall, was $298 million. Our revised pre-audit opening 2025 fund balance is $380.8 million, an increase of $82.8 million. That $82.8 million variance is really driven by 2 things: an increase in 2024 revenues over our original budget or forecast, and then unspent 2024 budget authority. As Pete Strecker highlighted in yesterday's financial update, some of the positive variances include additional interest income received from our investments, our real estate transfer tax being the 4th highest ever on record, exceeding our expectations there, as well as some outpacing of budget in things such as rent fees, development fees, and parking fees. And then on the expense side, roughly $48.3 million of carry forwards requested. About 5.3 million of completed capital is returning to fund balance, so that is kind of true in the net number. And then about 13.2 million in unspent base budget operating authority, which is a combo of savings on personnel and goods and services, are all returned to fund balance. So from that kind of gross, updated, beginning balance carry forward number, we have our spring supplemental expenditures that kind of net out of that. The largest being our capital carry forward. For 2025 spring, we're asking for 46.7 million. Just a reminder for council and the public, Colorado state regulations require that any remaining unspent appropriation authority must be reauthorized by city council into the new fiscal year. So again, that's about 86% of our spring ask is capital carry forward for projects that either didn't get started in 2024 or were started but were not yet completed. We're asking for you to reauthorize that authority so we can continue those projects in 2025. Again, as Pete mentioned last night, the 10 largest make up about 2/3 of that capital request. Some of the big ones, such as the old powerhouse renovation, lumberyard phase 0, and armory long-range planning. We also have about 1.1 million in operating carry forward for plans and studies that were under contract and began in 2024, but just didn't finish by 12/31. So we request to pull that authority forward to wrap those up in 2025. There are also about $500,000 in capital maintenance carry forwards and kind of detailed spend of how that'll be carried forward and again, put to use in 2025, along with existing budget authority this current fiscal year. New requests that were not part of the original adopted budget total about 2.6 million and are detailed in Exhibit B of the packet. Central and departmental savings, which is another component of spring budget authority approval, is about 3.4 million in line with prior years. And I kind of already mentioned my next talking point about the rest returns back to fund balance. Finally, we have technical adjustments, about 1.3 million. These are items that have come to council for approval since our original adoption for 2025, or transfer between funds that are really net zero impact to the city. A few previously approved items that you have seen in the last few weeks include the Wagner Park Playground, the red brick roof contract, and the Wrights Road water line replacement. Finally, that third component, revenues are forecasted higher than original 2025 budget by about 2.6 million, most of which are really timing of state and federal grant awards towards city projects, as well as additional projected revenues for Wheeler box office to reflect the new 2025 presented events program schedule. After all of those ins and outs, the City of Aspen's revised ending 2025 fund balance is forecasted to be 323 million, which is a net increase of 29.4 million, or about 10% higher than was originally presented in the fall. Also, Section 2 of Ordinance 3, Series 2025 reflects to increase budget authority for Truscott 2 affordable housing by about $800,000. That's all carry forward of existing 2024 projects. They have no new requests. And we also have no supplemental requests for Aspen Country Inn at this time. Staff recommends first reading approval of the revised spending plan for 2025 via Ordinance 3, Series 2025 to incorporate this additional spending request in the spring supplemental. And second reading is scheduled for public hearing on March 25th. Are there any questions I may be able to answer tonight or bring back for second reading?
Thank you. This is first reading. Council, do you have any questions?
We need to read this before we discuss it.
We don't need to do, it doesn't matter the order right now, but do you have?
Yeah, my question is on the 120 fund, the arts and culture, the 1.565 million one time for programming. That I know that I think Mike was not the executive director at the time of the budget formulation for 2025, and this comes right out of the Wheeler Fund, and so I'm wondering if it's a 1.5 million one time, but are we going to expect to see this incorporated in future budgets for programming for the Wheeler? It takes a pretty big hit on the Wheeler Fund.
So Mike is with us. If you'd like him to come up, I'll speak generally while he walks up that
We can hold that for second reading.
Okay. Yes, if programming is kind of desired at that level, we would see a new supplemental request for kind of ongoing funding during our 2026 budget development, or at council's direction, we could ask them to do it one time, year by year, and have it reviewed annually.
Yeah, it's my recollection that this council wanted to have some good programming, and this is the cost of that good programming. And I'm not complaining, I'm just looking for what's going to come up in the future.
And I will point out the kind of revenue offset while they keep their shows as affordable as possible, so they're not getting 100% recoup on every show. There is a revenue component that goes along with the additional spending on these shows.
Okay. I'll just mention that I went to Beaver Creek for a dance performance Saturday night, and looking through their programming, there's some of the same acts that are there that are here. And it was interesting to see a venue that is about the same number of seats, but is less than 30 years old compared to the Wheeler Opera House. We have a gym.
Other questions? Yep.
I'd like to have a discussion on the remote work study, $125,000. We can do that second reading, or,
I assume that work will be done remotely? Thank you. Gosh,
well done.
tough
Bill,
crowd.
Councilmember Guth, if you could elaborate on some of your questions, we can prepare for those.
Not sure I have questions. I have concerns about the need for that study. I guess my question would be, can staff defend the position of why the study is required as opposed to just taking action? Please.
On that subject, Bill, I had a question in my mind if this is something that should be put in a holding pattern until there's a new city manager to direct that. That's what just stood out to me on that particular subject.
Yeah, fair enough. Secondly, the Truscott APCHA roof. $265,000 for a 2,200 square foot roof. I question the need for it and why it costs so much. I would like to know more about this statement about partial future reimbursement to the fund expected through a CIRSA insurance claim, amount to be determined. You know, are we talking about 75% or 5% expected reimbursement there? That would be helpful to understand. I think those are my two questions or comments. Thanks.
John?
No questions. I found this very thorough and support it moving forward.
I had one additional concern, and I don't know if we need to address it, but it's the legal for BG3. When's this guy gonna go to bed?
Good question.
I'll make a motion to read ordinance number 3, series of 2025.
I'll second.
Motion and second for the discussion. Could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 3?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Hohenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes?
Ordinance number 3, series of 2025, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, appropriating an increase in 1, the 2025 municipal budget, and 2, the 2025 budget for Truscott Phase 2 Affordable Housing Fund, which is a component unit fund of the City of Aspen, and authorizing appropriations pursuant thereto.
I move we approve ordinance 3, 2025 on first reading.
I'll second.
Motion and second for the discussion. Could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 3 on first reading, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt and Pete. Great work on that.
So when's the snow coming?
Saturday, maybe?
That'll bring us down on our agenda to our action items. The first action item that we needed to discuss tonight was discussion and appointment of citizens to the Pickens County Airport Advisory Board, who will serve as an ex officio member representing the city of Aspen. When I reached out to a few council members to get some input on this, I heard from a majority that there is an interest in posting this so that we could have an open and transparent application process. And so I am suggesting this evening that we just simply direct Diane to make a listing and a posting to run for 2 weeks to get some applicants. And then we can have either an interview process or we'll see what happens with the applicant pool.
I think that this has been open for quite a while since the city manager resigned her position. And I would support bringing forward somebody that has shown an interest for this, an active interest, and that's Evan Marks. And I've spoken to some members of the Airport Advisory Board, and they're very receptive to his being a member of the Airport Advisory Board, mentioning his extensive financial experience and his ability to bring financial assets to the airport from federal, state, and local funds. So I'd like to go ahead and appoint Evan Marks at this point.
I second that support.
Well, that's a shame. I think this should be open to the community, and I think that Evan should have a chance to come in here and talk to us, and others should as well. I don't support that. I support listing this and doing this like a board or commission vote.
Chairman. We spoke earlier today about this. I just wanted to offer, because I'm very supportive of Evan as well, but I was just wondering if we acted with gusto and put out applicants and had interviews next Monday and appointments the following Tuesday, would that work while it's still this board and just the 2 weeks to potentially get to that would that work for you?
Yeah, that would work for me. I think Evan was golfing in Nevada today, so he couldn't show up, but I think that if we open it for 2-week period, and if anybody's interested besides Evan, have them come in and we make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a little speedier than we wish, but I would say interviews next Monday, really crank it out, and appointment that following Tuesday at the regular meeting while it's still all of us.
Bill, how do you feel about that?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
I don't,
I don't think you made a motion.
Oh, it was close to, but it was,
all right, so I'll just support the, having this as an open posting.
And I'll let Ms. Henning speak to this, but it does take some time to get the ad in the paper if your intention is to advertise in the paper publicly for that open position. Alternatively, you can just post it. We can post it online. We can post it at City Hall. But if you want to advertise in a paper like we do with our other boards, I think that might take more than a week to get in the paper.
my other alternative is maybe interviews on March 24th with appointment on March 25th, the very next day, since we do have a work session that day. That also is fine with me. I just wanted to get done while it's still all 5 of us, and then 2 weeks and open and transparent.
That's doable.
Okay,
Works with me.
okay.
So we'd like to post it. We can post it on our website. We can post it however, and then an ad in the paper whenever it can get there is great. We'll leave it open till,
Interviews March 24th, appointment March 25th is my idea. So, I don't know.
yeah, so we can leave
Leave it open
it
till the
open
23rd.
until the whatever that Wednesday is prior to the 25th.
The 19th?
You said, yeah.
The 19th.
Yeah, because we would just need any names and applicants to be ready for the packet on the Thursday. So we
See-
can open that, we can open it until next Wednesday, basically.
Is one ad in the paper fine?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
What?
One ad in the paper is what
Yeah.
she's asking, is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the openness and transparency to it, and we'll see what the applicants bring. Evan was great, but yeah.
Yeah, and for those that are listening, show an interest and show up for an interview.
Nicole, that works for you to close on the 19th and then have it in the packet for the 24th, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
that should
great,
be
thanks.
Thank you. Our next action item is the city manager recruitment memo. The city of Aspen is in a position to look for a city manager, and that process typically includes a nationwide search using a professional organization that specializes in recruitment for applicants. Alyssa, if you'd like to tell us any more?
Correct. Thank you, Mayor Torres. So Alyssa Farrell, Administrative Services Director, looking for direction from council in terms of moving forward with an executive recruiter and starting the RFP process. The RFP process in itself would include a week to 2 weeks to determine the scope and put it out there to the world to see who applies as the executive recruiters. If council chooses to move forward with the executive recruiter, the recommendation is that the RFP would remain open for 4 to 6 weeks. I have 6 weeks in the memo. It could be 4 weeks if council so chooses, and that it would be a national search. Looking within the scope, we're estimating the cost is between $30,000 and $50,000. The first step is really looking at the interview firms that typically take, once you hire an executive recruiter, the scope of duties that they're performing. After council selects a firm, is really preparing for the recruitment. That could take a month approximately. Managing the search process, that could take 1 to 2 months. Coordination of the interviews, that could take a month. And then negotiation and your finalists providing notice, so a month approximately to 2 months as well. So you're talking towards fall, and that's beginning the process now. So keeping all of that in mind.
Sam?
Oh, well, yeah, I just want to do this with haste. I wanted to ask, is this the way it was done the last time we went out for a city manager? Yeah, I mean, that's really it. I just want to make sure this is done quickly and efficiently.
Thank you. Yes, I actually wrote the last RFP as well, back in 2019, when we worked with Peckham and McKinney. So I'm familiar with the process and could help to expedite the process.
Oh, sorry, one more that I thought of is, at what point in the process will a council put in our values towards what we're really looking for in a city manager?
Great question. Within the process, the best practice, the standard, and council, once an executive firm is interviewed and hired, you can really delve into the details. The best practice with what we've seen is developing, and what we did last time, is developing a working group or a committee. So you have, it's usually HR, so it was myself last time, along with 2 council members within a working group. It could be all of council. You could form this in multiple ways and fashions to make sure everyone is heard, to develop the candidate profile and the values, your competencies and skills, along with community feedback. So that would be the process once you select an executive search firm. As we mentioned today, I'm just looking to start the process. A lot more to come.
Yeah, now it's understood.
Yeah, that comes in after.
Alyssa, thanks for the thorough memo. You mentioned the firm you used last time was Peckham.
And McKinney.
Peckham and
Andrew-
McKinney. How was your
Andrew
experience
Jorge.
with them? How was your experience with them?
My experience was fairly positive. We worked and collaborated on the brochure and gathered the feedback and did the recruitment and selection process fairly expeditiously, and he was actually located in Glenwood Springs at the time, so the understanding of the Roaring Fork Valley was immensely helpful.
Do you have a different firm that if you had to pick one to start something immediately that you would prefer over them?
So I've been gathering a lot of information for council to help make that decision. I've been working with ICMA, Colorado Municipal League as well, and looking at who the county is using currently as they look for a deputy county manager. So we'll be able to reach out to quite a few executive search firms and make sure that we're able to hopefully hire the best executive search firm out there. And there's a wide range of options for council.
Should I interpret that as a no response? You don't have anyone that you prefer over Peckham and McKinney today?
Well, the recruiter at that time now works for someone different who would be able to apply. I don't have a preferred recruitment firm. It really depends on council's direction and priorities.
If I were to suggest that we sole source this to expedite it, how would you respond to that?
Thank you for your explicit question. Now I understand. My recommendation, speaking frankly, would be to cast a broad net to see who would apply. I think there are some really exceptional recruitment firms out there right now. I'm very intrigued by the county's recruitment firm for the deputy county manager, and I would be interested in hearing more that CML has recommended quite a few too, and to really use this time to do our due diligence and see who applies and interview them.
Would you say that for the most part, the fee structures are competitive amongst the potential firms?
Yes.
Okay, is there a way for us to give you the discretion to expeditiously interview and select a search firm so that we can get the firm selection process done sooner rather than later?
We could direct her to make it a 4-week process and not the 5 or 6 week process. That would probably be as quick as you could get it done.
Let me clarify. I don't want this to come back to council. I don't think that we are as good at selecting executive search firm as Alyssa is. So could we give Alyssa the discretion to hire the firm that she likes and start interviewing them tomorrow?
One option maybe, I appreciate your confidence in me. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that role, speaking frankly.
I'm confident for you.
Thank you. One option may be to develop and establish a working group sooner rather than later for that, within that 4-week time frame, and that typically includes, and that is a best practice, and that typically includes 2 council members along with someone from our ADT, along with HR, which will be myself in the near future. So I would be helping in that process, and then we can move expeditiously.
I think the other piece we just need to honor is that there's a new council coming in, and they may choose to want to have greater participation in that process. And again, I want to echo what Alyssa said, Bill. We very much appreciate your confidence in staff and in Alyssa, and I would agree. I have great confidence in her.
And I'm happy to help and make the process.
I'm speaking for others here, which is super dangerous, but I'm just not sure that there's a lot of value that we or whoever sits in these seats can add to selecting a executive search firm. Does anyone else agree with me here? Does anyone else want to expedite this process?
Well, with respect, I don't agree. I went through this process with Alyssa and Courtney and Mayor Skadron at the time, and I think it's a great value to look at the different firms that are the executive headhunters that are out there. And the landscape has changed since the last time I went through this with Peck and McKinney. People change, they go have different alignments. I think at a point when you get finalists for the recruitment firm, what we did is we interviewed, I think, 3 finalists for who the firm was going to be. And I think the council made the decision as who the firm was going to be. But part of the process was having a firm that would listen to the council so that when you define what your values are for a new city manager, that you have somebody to lead you through that process. And this is a decision that's probably going to last hopefully 5-6 years as it did last time. And I think you and Sam for certain are going to be involved in it. And Rachel, I think, has gone through it before, but there, Tori and John are two other members of council. You're going to need, I think, the guidance of the best firm available. So I firmly believe that I don't want to put Alyssa in a position where if it fails, it's her fault. I want ownership and buy-in from the whole council. And I'm not going to be part of the council, so it's easy for me to say.
Yeah, I appreciate the color there, Ward, and I agree with the sentiment, but I think that, I think Alyssa's ears are wide open. And I also think that your comments come as no surprise to her. I would speculate that or she knows that community fit is important and that finding someone with shared values that are developed by the council is important. But all we're talking about is finding the recruiting firm here, and I would personally be comfortable in delegating that responsibility in order to expedite this process. I'm 1 of 5.
I'm 1 of 5. We've got the bookends.
John?
Yeah, I think we should take, I think we should take our time in this process and make sure we make the right decision for the community moving forward. This is a decision that's going to be with us, if on average, 5 to 6 years. I'd like it to last much longer than that. I'd like to see a city manager that we can have for 10 or more years personally. So I think we should take our time and make sure we get this right. And I also think we should be conscious of the fact that there will be a new council coming on board, and we don't want to, we want to make sure they're included in this process. Thanks.
Yeah, I think Alyssa is picking up on what we're putting down here, which is expediting this process and not starting necessarily from scratch. So what lessons that we've learned in any way are applicable to expedite the process? For example, leaving the recruiter application period open for 4 weeks and not 6, moves it up 2 weeks. And any other areas that you see as places to gain efficiency, I think should be incorporated. She was just suggesting that maybe some of that pre-work and discussions can happen in the interim and stuff. So I think expediting it is something that is going to happen. And this council all agrees, yes, that we're looking for an expedited process, but not one that cuts corners. Right? Yeah. We want the quickest that we can do without sacrificing any quality. So with that, I support that as an action, but I do not want to make Alyssa responsible for selecting the committee. I think that is something that needs to sit at the council table. Sam?
Oh, just, you had 2 questions in the packet, and my answer is yes to both, as far as, should the council approve the completion and posting the initial RFP process, and yes to conducting a national search, and then, initial RFP process again, and 6-week period for posting of the RFP being acceptable, so yes to both of those. But yeah, what Tori said, with haste, not sacrificing quality.
So to summarize, if I may.
Yep.
Working expeditiously along with thoroughness to move forward on initiating the RFP process for 4 weeks. Is that correct? I know I said 6 weeks in the packet, but I'm hearing from the majority 4 weeks.
Well, I would say you suggested 6, and 2 weeks is not a big enough difference for me if it is sacrificing quality. So, I appreciate everything Bill said, but at the same time, it didn't seem like it was going to cut much time off of the process. So it was just what's the difference between 2 weeks is 2 weeks for what was hopefully over a decade city manager.
I appreciate that notion too, but I don't think responding to this RFP requires so much work. You know, like we saw some recruiters respond to our municipal judge RFP.
Yeah.
Right? One or two. And, you know, those are basically like, they just have a sort of pre-prepared RFP response, which I imagine if you are a executive recruiter that specializes in filling these types of positions, you have a fairly dialed in one. And maybe it has some customization, but I don't think that this takes you 6 weeks to respond to. So yes, there's time to hear about these things. And I definitely respect Alyssa's judgment on it, but I'm just anxious to get going.
Sorry, real quick. April 8th is the meeting 4 weeks from now, but that'd be the swearing in. April 22nd is the one 6 weeks from now. I feel like that'd be more fair to a new council to be able to do it then. I don't think it needs.
Well, this is RFP response period would be open for 4 or 6 weeks we're talking about. Then she needs time to compile, to make selections, finalists, recommendations, prepare materials. So it's more than a 4 or 6 week
It would kick
period.
into the next council,
Yes,
so.
no matter
You have a
what.
comment?
If I may, just to help clarify and hopefully move this along, I think we can be expeditious and thorough in 4 weeks, then we can start reaching out ASAP and still have quality candidates and meet the mark. I do believe that. I did write 6 weeks in the memo. We can do 4 and continue to meet the mark there. And I wanted to add one really important point. I still have to write the RFP. So please keep that in mind when you're pushing out the timeline as well. And my goal is to write it within the next week.
And it would be open and effective for 4 weeks from the date of publication, not from today.
Correct.
Right.
So probably May.
Okay, I think I have clear direction.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you.
I tried to save you a week of RFP writing.
I appreciate it.
I'm sure she appreciates your confidence, Bill.
I don't think they need it.
Yeah, and just to be clear, hey, I feel the same. Like, I would make you do it in a heartbeat. But I just don't
We're
think.
in this together. It's your
Yeah, I
honor.
just don't think we should.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council, this evening, staff is requesting an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Section 24-6-402, subsection 4, subsection B, for purposes of conferences with an attorney for the local public body for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. Subsection 4, subsection E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. And finally, subsection 4, subsection F, personnel items. The specific items of discussion involve the following: receipt of legal advice from the city attorney and the city's independent water council regarding the status of city water rights, pending and anticipated future water court proceedings, in consideration of climate change and fire suppression needs. Specific subjects of future water court proceedings include the change of location of the city's conditional storage rights decreed to the Castle and Maroon Creek reservoirs and stipulations related thereto in case numbers 16 CW 3128 and 16 CW 3129. Item number 2, the Wheeler and Belly Up Memorandum of Understanding, Resolution 177, Series of 2017, and then finally, discussions and negotiations regarding the interim city manager position. Yes, and that takes a vote of 2/3 of the council to convene into executive session. My understanding is that upon ending the executive session, we will not return to this room to end the meeting, as there are no further items to be discussed.
I'll make a motion to convene an executive session.
Second.
Motion and second for executive session. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote for going into executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. Enthusiastic,